You're sat there staring at a blank page. You're wondering, what am I going to do on my next film project? What if I told you that the answer you're looking for is already in your headphones? What's up, everyone? If you don't know me, my name's JT Harper, and I'm a freelance filmmaker and wedding videographer. And for the next little bit, I'm going to talk about how music has kind of transformed my creative process. We all have different ways of brainstorming, whether it's watching other creators, watching other films, or studying other kind of art forms, but sometimes it can still feel tough to find the right inspiration that you're looking for, especially if you're scrolling on social media. And while I do collect a mood board from other creators online from Instagram and YouTube, I'd say that only accounts for maybe half of my inspiration, and the other half truly comes from listening to music. It's incredible how inspiring listening to different genres can be. And I know I'm not alone in this. Scientific studies have already dove into how music affects the brain and everything, and I myself don't need scientific research to know that music can have a very powerful impact on our emotions. Paul Sorgule, sorry if I mispronounced that, from Harvest America Q's said, "When we stop and accept the opportunity to absorb these experiences, we open the door to becoming something unique, a product of everything that we let in. As a cook and a chef, I've always found inspiration in music, whether it's the structure of classical music that relates to the importance of cooking foundations or the freewheeling improvisation of jazz greats. Creativity in cooking allows for this type of self-expression. It is music in my head that always keeps cooking alive." The same can be applied to filmmaking and photography, literally any other kind of art form. And I know some of you might be thinking, but I already listen to music all the time, and it doesn't really spark any creativity. And while you may be listening to music, you're probably not actively listening to the music. What I mean is literally taking in the music with no other distractions around. You're actively listening to the music coming through those headphones. I'd say a lot of times you can get stuck at just looking at the visuals of other creators, and sometimes that can lead to copying other filmmakers, which is obviously dangerous. So how do you find your own unique visual language? How do you basically translate abstract emotions into concrete shots and sequences? So let me walk you through my process for a little bit. When I'm preparing for a project, I'm oftentimes listening to music, and I will deliberately set aside time for brainstorming with music playing. So I will be actively looking at maybe some inspirations on shot deck or frame set, looking at different shots and things that maybe kind of vibe with the music that I'm listening to. Really try to find ones that match the feeling of the song. I maybe also writing ideas down online, or sometimes I'm just writing ideas in a journal. But here's the key point. I'm not listening from a technical perspective. I'm not trying to listen to the beats to know when to cut and stuff like that. I'm not doing anything like that. Listening to how the song makes me feel, and then I translate that into visual ideas. So a couple years ago, I shot this promo for our church. It was our church's 75th anniversary, and I was given a whole box full, 2 or 3 boxes full of photos and stuff. So I immediately started brainstorming, what could I use? How could I utilize these photos, and what kind of content could I capture? And so yes, for this project, I started out online. I was looking at another film, and I believe it was a Volvo commercial called Little Things, but it wasn't the visuals of that commercial that sparked my inspiration. It was the music. And that song in particular, there's a spot in that song, and it's called I think Little Things Mean a Lot by Betty Swan. And it's not even the full song. It's this one particular part. It's around the 3-minute, 15-second mark. And it's this really soft kind of out of tune piano with the really smooth vocals that just something clicked. And I immediately started thinking, okay, old gospel songs, old hymns are going to work perfect for this promo. I think literally the next day after I'd seen that film, I opened up Spotify and started listening to a bunch of old hymns and everything, and really just trying to kind of find the vibe that I was looking for. For the social media one, I landed on, I'll have to find it later. It had this nice gospel feel to it. And then for the main promo video, it was a really calm acoustic version of a hymn. And so while I was listening to this kind of music, immediately ideas just started rolling in my head. I thought of maybe a push-in shot of the pulpit. I thought of taking those photos and putting them into the original classrooms that those photos were taken in. Maybe some static shots of the church building, detailed shots of meaningful objects inside the church, different things like that. And then one particular idea came from a lyric. I think it says beams of heaven or something like that. In the song that I used, my mind went to, okay, it'd be really cool if the lights in our church just beamed up in front of the camera as I'm doing a push-in shot through the aisle, and ended up using that, and it's one of my favorite shots from the entire film. Now keep in mind, a lot of this inspiration didn't come from, span of like a 5-minute song. It came over the course of a few days of just constantly listening to this type of music and just jotting down any ideas that came to my head. All of that is a long version of saying that the soft piano songs, the guitar songs, all inspire these ideas of still, calm shots, static shots, nothing really handheld or shaky, super energetic, anything like that. I think the music, I know the music just shaped my visual language for the film. There was another article that I found while researching to see if other people kind of thought the same way, by Lindsey Eastwood in the Medium. I remember an activity in my visual art class in high school where my teacher played a piece of music and told us to pick up the paintbrush and paint whatever came to our minds while listening to the music. It was a very interesting experience where I was not thinking and stressing about creating perfect lines and forms. I just let the paintbrush move freely and allowing different colors combined to create a piece of art that represented the emotions and sounds of the music. And that's exactly what this is. It's creation from music. When I listen to the music, I'm letting it paint these images in my head. I'm not stressed about anything else. It's all about finding the right music that's going to inspire the particular project you're working on. This approach has fundamentally changed the way I approach my creative work now. Instead of just starting with shot lists or storyboards, I'm starting with a playlist. The music kind of builds the emotional core of the project. And then from there, I'm building out compositions and framing and everything else. When I listen to music with the intent to create, I'm allowing myself to think freely without any critics or technical constraints. The music becomes a bridge between abstract emotions and concrete visual ideas. So like next time you're struggling with a project, take the next 30 minutes and just listen to music. No distractions. Find music that fits the vibe of your next project. Put on some headphones and just listen. And let it try to paint these images in your mind. And just start jotting things down, whatever comes to your mind. Take those raw ideas and see if some of them can translate into your next film. In the brainstorming part, there's no bad ideas. Everything is welcome. I was pretty surprised at how much creativity listening to music unlocked for me. And you might be surprised too. Remember that inspiration can come from anywhere. Sometimes you just need to listen.